The role of L1 in L2 learning, the background. Now let's look at the research over the years and what has been the role that has been identified by the research. So in the 1950s, you have this L1 or the first language research where the first language was identified as a negative source of interference. It was seen as an interfering factor that somehow affected negatively the learning of the second language. And how did they identify that the first language was a source of error or mistakes in the second language? That was coming from the errors or mistakes the learners were making. So Lado, conspicuous figure that stands out, would say that the errors that the learners make in their second language as they try to learn it comes from their first language. And then what started off was this trend of contrastive analysis. So the researchers took upon themselves to compare the whole languages with each other to identify what were the areas where the learners will face problem and which are the areas where the learners from a specific language will not face problem. So although this was a voluminous task, in any case, in whatever research was done, it was realized that similar aspects of L1, that is when the first language of the learner was closer to the learning, to the language that the learner was trying to learn, then the first language will facilitate the second language journey. However, if the first language was completely different from the language that the learner was trying to learn, then it will be a source of problem. Now, we have discussed this before also, that although this rationale for contrastive analysis came from the problems that the teachers were facing in their classroom with multilingual or bilingual students, however, the claims made by contrastive analysis were not that strong. In any case, L1 interference was seen in the learner errors. We also agree with it even now, even when the students are speaking in English, our own students, you can actually identify almost as if they are using Urdu structures when they are speaking in English. Martin said, well, these errors arise from the learner's tendency to actually revert to their strong and persistent habit of using L1. They are so used to the use of the first language that they try to transfer the same structures to the second language. And when we ask the learners to explain the same thing or the same stimuli in a different language, they get confused. And he also argued that there does not exist any peaceful, there is no way that the two languages that the learner, one that the learner already knows, and the other language that the learner is trying to learn, that they can exist in the mind of the learner peacefully. So these two systems of language are constantly conflicting each other. They are in constant warfare. So it is best that the learner is stopped to use the first language to learn the second.